Hello, everybody, and welcome to a early edition of Alley Talk. We are live streaming the MLB trade deadline up past the 6 p.m. deadline today. It's been an exciting one so far. The Phillies have already made a couple of moves, and we'll get into that. We'll have a couple other guys on the team joining us as we go. Right now, joining me is Tim Sullivan, longtime writer for PSN, usually covering the Sixers, but he covers the Phillies as well. Tim, welcome in.
What's up, Alec? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You know, these trades that the Phillies have made so far have been solid additions, in my opinion. First off, let's get to the main one in that the Phillies traded for probably the best closer on the trade market in Jhoan Duran. Uh, an excellent closer with the Minnesota Twins. Throws, I think he averages just over 100 mile an hour on his fastball. He features the splinker, that renowned pitch that, Paul Skeens and a couple of others use. I think he's going to fit perfectly in the back end of the Phillies bullpen, which they desperately needed help. And they didn't sell the farm to get him for 2.5 years. Tim, when you saw this trade come down, what did you think of this?
First, it's excitement. You're looking at going from a guy like Alvarado, who started the season as he had lost weight and looked to be in better shape, was had good command this year, and with everything that he had going on, it seemed like once he was done, the bullpen fell apart. And to get somebody of Duran's, um, I guess, level, it's virtually it's not impossible, but for a team like the Phillies to go out and be able to get somebody like that, and then you look at the return, you're like, well, Tate is looks to be like he's going to be a fine prospect. Again, he's just 19. You might be looking at 4 or 5 years from here, and he's already split half his time at catcher and I think DH in the minors, so you don't know where he's going to play. And then you have Abel, who he hasn't had a good minor league career up until this year. And I think a big part of that might be getting to work with somebody like Garrett Stubbs, who's actually a professional and can really help him change what he's doing. And he had some success early with the Phillies, and then it kind of fell apart. Then he goes back to the minors, and he's just doing very well. I think they sold super high on both guys because there's nobody else. And if after that you look at players that got traded, like um, when San was it the Padres gave up four of their top 20 prospects in their organization for a closer. It's just amazing to see that they got two players that they sold high on to get a guy that's under control for this year and two more that takes you right to the end of where Wheeler said, "Hey, I'm going to be done in the end of my contract in 2 years."
Yeah, this is the window for the Phillies. And I agree with you. They did sell high, it seems, both on Abel and Tait. Uh, the I think it cannot be understated the work that McAbel put in. And, he tied a 70-year-old rookie record for the Phillies, for most strikeouts by a rookie in his debut. Uh, you just have to give him credit. And of course, like you said, Garrett Stubbs definitely played a good role in that. I'm sure we'll hear that as well from when Corey Nito joins us. He's been kind of our Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs expert for PSN. But this time last year, this trade is impossible.
Absolutely. It's absolutely impossible. Painter's coming off the injured list. Abel is doing horrible. Tate hadn't exploded like you wanted. I think you would have been looking at like Miller, Crawford, and probably two more prospects if you wanted to do this last year. And now this year, I'm like I said, I was shocked. I was shocked to see that the cost from the Phillies side was, I don't want to say low because you did give up two top prospects, but you're looking at a 7 or 6 year return on uh sorry, on which we call the catcher, and then you're able could step in a little bit this year. I'm sure they're going to give him a chance to see what he can do, but it was just too easy to not take this deal. I'm sure from Dombrowski's part.
Yeah, and listen, the ceiling for McAbel and Eduardo Tait there's some potential there. McAbel has the potential to be a mid rotation starter, maybe with a little upside. But right now, he's maybe a 5 starter, but he can swing into the rotation this year. So that's probably half of the appeal for the Twins is that they're getting a starter that they can basically plug in right now. Although I know he is starting in AAA. We do have another trade coming down. This one from Jeff Passan, not for the Phillies, but for the Los Angeles Dodgers. It looks like they're not getting a big outfield piece. Instead, they are getting Alex Call from the Washington Nationals. Now, Alex Call is a speedy outfielder. He hasn't been, you know, a super big bat in the lineup. I'll pull up his stats right now. He's been hitting 274 this year. I think he's been in a little bit more of a platoon situation, and he's been succeeding with a 119 OPS plus. But he's not going to be an extra base guy. You know, it seems like the Dodgers finally make a move after they only traded for basically a middle reliever from the Minnesota Twins earlier in the day. Any thoughts on Alex Call? Have you seen any of the Nationals games lately? See this guy play?
No, I haven't. I mean, I looked over his stats when you see it, and they're like, I'm sure it's going to be a good piece for the Dodgers. I know they're counting on Blake Snell returning, and that's almost like a huge trade deadline get. The same as the Phillies are looking at Nola coming in later this month. Um, I I haven't really concerned myself with the Nationals as much until people start throwing names out at trade deadlines, and then I got to start looking. I'm like, oh, good lord.
Yeah, it is kind of shocking that the Dodgers haven't done more at this deadline yet because it seems like the Padres are really throwing everything at this trade deadline. They shocked everybody and traded for Mason Miller today. Hey, you referenced it earlier. They traded, I believe, which is the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, and Leo DeVries, shortstop prospect. And then I think they sent 3 other pitchers in that deal. Of course, they
Yeah,
also get, I think, J.P. Sears, who is a decent starter.
I think when I looked it up, that it was the number one, the number five, the number 13, and 15 prospects in their organization for Miller.
It was a hefty cost.
And to look at it now, you mentioned it at the opening of the show. Miller and Duran, speed wise and all, as far as velocity, I think the two highest ones are Miller's at like 101.1, and Duran was at like 100.9 on their fastball when you're looking at closers. But to see what Philly gave up compared to the Padres giving up the number 3 overall prospect in all of baseball. And the Phillies didn't have to give up Andrew Painter, who I think sits at right around 5 or 6 right now. I don't know. The Padres are they're really trying to I guess to catch the Dodgers and what they want to do. They
Yeah,
also
and
got was it Ryan O'Hearn
Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Liriano. They traded
and
for
Liriano from the
both.
Orioles, right?
Yeah. So it's let's see. They traded Boston Bateman, who is their number 4 prospect in that deal, to the Orioles. I don't think the full package is out on that one, but they are really just absolutely hemorrhaging through talent to acquire, I guess, what they see as upgrades to their major league team. They, I think, acquired the catcher from Kansas City as well. Um, I can't remember his name at off the top of my head. I'm scrolling through all these notifications of
Fermin from
yeah,
the Royals.
yes, Freddie
Yeah,
Fermin.
Freddie Fermin from the Royals, the catcher. These teams seem to do, and I'm sure in a lot of the conversations we've had, you know that I'm a huge proponent of the old, I guess there's no better way to say it than the Steinbrenner way, which is get rid of your prospects for the people that can help you win titles now with the team that you have now. And some of these teams are embracing it now. You look at the Mets. Obviously, I always feel like the Mets are going to do something dumb and fall apart. The Dodgers have spent over $1 billion to bring in players and all and now they're going to try to make a move. The Padres want to make a move, but again, if it doesn't work out for them and they reevaluate next year, You still have Miller under control for 2 more years. You can move him for more prospects, and that's what a big thing that I'm on. Like, if the Phillies for whatever reason fell apart in the next 2 seasons, you still have quality guys that you could move to replenish the prospect pool. And I think they did a nice job of that in the draft this year. I mean, there what 7 college pitchers they pulled out, 3 of whom are
Yeah,
supposed to be very good, including Gage Wood, who's Wood looks to be.
Edgewood, and they also their seventh round pick, I believe he signed the highest ever for the highest ever amount the seventh rounder has ever signed. I know
Yeah,
he
like a
was a
1.2 million
talented
or
prep,
something, right?
yeah, talented prep arm, I think out of Indiana. So they did get some good pitching talent out of the draft this year. We'll see how that develops as these guys start getting assignments. I know Gage Wood was heading down to Florida. I don't know when he gets his first appearance. Um, but there's a lot of talent that they have got. And you were saying how the Padres have done it. We saw it kind of with the Juan Soto deal. They gave up a monstrous haul to bring in Juan Soto. And honestly, the Nationals are looking wise for that deal with James Woods now being one of the young superstars in the league. And you have Mackenzie Gore being one of the more frontline lefty starters. We saw it on opening day when he struck out, what was it, like 16 Phillies? Uh, he was kind of nuts. The shadows did play a role. Uh, but they ultimately traded Juan Soto to New York and they got Michael King back, who I think he's on the injured list right now, but has been a pretty solid starter for them. So there are options that you can do. Some reason next year this Phillies team becomes old and decrepit and they're way below expectations. You could sell Duran for 2 years of control and probably, I'm not going to say you can get more than you traded him for, but I don't think that's out of the question.
Not next year because, like you said, for whatever reason, if anything happened to this Phillies team that they weren't going to compete, especially until the end of Wheeler's contract in the end of 27, and they for some reason just looked and said, "Look, we got to retool now." At next year's deadline, you're going to have teams again: Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, Red Sox, Padres. You're going to have those teams. Even the Mariners look like they're starting to try to do something to get themselves in the AL West to take another step to go to the next level. And if you have players like Duran that you can move, they absolutely can do it. And like I said, you still have a bunch of young prospects they could move if they wanted to make another deal by the end of the deadline. I've said this quite a few times over the past 2 weeks when people bring up Andrew Painter that a lot more prospects turn into Kyle Drabeck than they do Paul Skeens. And it's a shame because Kyle Drabeck was that name we had years back where everybody's like, this guy's going to be a stud. And they moved on from him and everybody said, how could you? And then next thing you know, when he was 11 and 13, I think, for his career. And I'm not saying Painter's going to do that. He does have the look of somebody that could be a star,
And he
but
definitely has more pure stuff than a guy like Kyle Drabeck.
yeah,
Um, and this is why the Phillies have treated him like this. They've you know basically kept him in bubble wrap as much as you can, but they were ready to promote him 2 years ago. No, three. Was it 3 years ago now that it was that spring training? Was it 22 or 23? It must have been 23. Spring training at 23.
it's
They
got to
were
be, yeah,
ready.
because he's 22 now, right?
Yeah, he was 19.
Yeah.
So when he was 19, they were ready to take the bet on him. If he had a decent spring training, he was going to be in the rotation at age 19. That's insane. So they were already high on this guy back then, but they have meticulously watched his rehab. They have done everything possible to make sure that he gets the best opportunity possible to succeed in the major leagues. And we've kind of seen it his last two AAA starts. He's really shown a lot more out of length and composure because it seemed like he was really kind of struggling, kind of third time through a lineup, and really was only getting to like maybe the fifth inning. But now he's through 6 innings. I think he went 6 1/3 in his last start. He could be up soon. And if he is even half of what he is as advertised, he's going to be a mainstay in the Phillies rotation for the 7 years of control that the Phillies should have.
I look at somebody like Painter and even Abel. Abel was brought up out of necessity and went up doing well. I think it would have served him better to have those full 2 months in AAA as well. But at that point of their career, you pretty much know what to expect from them. And I look at it like those guys are down there, and you might have a game where Painter gives up 4 or 5 runs. But my theory on that is when you have it, they're looking at them saying, hey, I need you to work on these pitches, putting them in these areas. And then they'll say, oh, well, he didn't throw this pitch that much this game. He gave up 5 runs. He should go back to the curveball or whatever it is. And when you look at it, you have to say that, hey, you have to be ready for major league hitters. And the difference is drastic. There's plenty of guys that sit in the AAA for their whole career. To get to the majors, it's a different level. So at some point, you're working on them and just saying, hey, you're going to need to be able to do these things with your command. And we're going to work on you with your, we don't care about your runs. We know who you are. We don't care about your ERA. We'd like it to be lower, but let's see if you can put these balls where we need you to put them so that when you get up there and we're telling you what to do, you know exactly and having a guy like Stubbs is huge for that because he's saying, hey, I know what to do. I've been on the World Series contender and in the playoffs and all these things. I've worked with pitchers like Wheeler and Nola and Sanchez and all. So he can really help them get along there. I don't think you're going to have a problem with Andrew Painter. The only question is, do they bring him up and ask him to assume some sort of bullpen role?
So let's bring in a couple of guys that are just as knowledgeable on the Phillies, but especially one in Corey Nito. He'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, about Andrew Painter. He's reported on him and covered him very thoroughly this year. And of course, we'll also have Kyle Fisher on. So let me add these guys in here now. Guys, welcome. We're here talking all the trades. You know what? Let's jump right in it. Corey, let's hear what your latest is on Andrew Painter. You know, everybody wants to know about this Phillies prospect pretty much more than any in recent memory. So let's hear what you have, covered throughout the season and let us know why the Phillies have been so reluctant to include him in any sort of trade package.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just his pure stuff. I mean, the fastball sitting at 97, 98. His sinker is right around there velocity-wise. His slider is getting better. He's got a changeup. I mean, he has a full arsenal. And I was at his last home start, and it was probably his best start overall. He went 6 innings for the first time this season, allowed 2 earned runs. Just 1 hit, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. The lone hit was a solo home run off the bat of Ryan Mountcastle. So, I mean, this is, that's not somebody that you're like, oh, man, why did he give up a home run? Ryan Mountcastle has spent a good bit of amount of time in the big leagues. And I asked Andrew after the game about that pitch. It was a curveball, which was working really well, and a pitch that he threw a lot more that outing than he did in his previous start. And he said that that's just a pitch that you want to get beat by the best with your best, and that's what happened. And he said, hey, Ryan Mountcastle, he's been the show. He's pretty darn good in his own right. You kind of tip your cap and move forward. And I think Painter is understanding how to become a pitcher now. He admitted, hey, I've been getting ambushed with my fastball here in AAA, and that fastball is his best pitch. So now he's realizing that he has to work his secondary pitches in to get these hitters off the fastball. And then when he does that, he can come in and get 98, 99 blown by them. So 2 really encouraging starts. Last time out was the other day where he went a season high 6 in the 3rd innings, threw a career high 103 pitches. So they clearly wanted him to get stretched out more. And I think also wanted to do an up and down for a 7th time. You know, he only got the first out of that top of the 7th inning, but it was a big building block for him. So there's a reason why Andrew Painter is not touchable in any of these trades. I know some people have got him. He's like, well, look at his stats. He's got an ERA over 4. He's not that good. He's coming back from another Tommy John surgery. The command is always what takes the longest to come back. The velocity is there. It's him harnessing that control and command. And now, since the start of the second half, it looks like he has really started to hone in on that. And I think if he puts in one more start like he has in each of his last two, I wouldn't be surprised if they call him up, late August before September call-ups.
Kyle, you just joined in as well. We've hit on the Jhoan Duran trade. Corey giving us a take on Andrew Painter, who really was the asking price for Jhoan Duran. What have you thought about the Phillies' moves so far and what they've given up?
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised that they were able to get someone the caliber of Duran without having to give up one of their top three prospects. Now, granted, it was your fourth and your sixth, according to MLB Pipeline, in Taiit and Abel. I think that Abel is a solid arm, and I think we've seen what the Twins have been able to do in recent years, maybe not to the same level with Chris Paddock, but Joe Ryan, a few others, where they took some guys who had high profile prospect at one time and turned them into a solid starting arm for a few years. So I think that they looked at him as somebody that they could really harness and get to be a middle of the rotation starter for a few years. Taiit, 18, projects to have a big bat at the major league level, has a big arm behind the plate, might not last as a catcher forever, but he's going to be a major league catcher at some point. But he's not within the window that the Phillies have right now. I think that the window is sometimes the short length of the window is sometimes over exaggerated by a lot of Phillies fans. But overall, as an 18-year-old, unless he skyrockets suddenly, he's not projected to be in the majors for a few seasons still, probably into his mid-20s. So if they don't feel like they can be competitive, then you're holding on to a guy who has value and could bring you value to help support this current window that you're in. So I liked what they were able to do to get probably the best available relief pitcher, and only gave up, I mean, granted, two highly rated prospects, but only gave up two guys, and you were able to hold on to Painter, Miller, and Crawford, who are considered the cream of the crop when it comes to Phillies prospects. So I liked what they gave up there. I think it was the 14th prospect and another guy outside the top 30 to go get Harrison Bader, who, while maybe not the flashy name, gets you better. And that's what you want to do with this trade deadline. You want to get better where you can. A very strong defender in center field. We'll have to see when Dombrowski speaks to the media later tonight about what the plans are. I would imagine they would at least entertain the idea of him being the everyday center fielder, and then pushing Marsh to left and maybe going Rojas off the bench. Who knows what happens with Kepler or Wilson. Maybe they pivot in a different direction, seeing a lot of the moves that every other big-time team in the National League has made in the last half hour or so, it seems. And maybe they decide to pull the trigger on Justin Crawford getting called up and a platoon in left field. So we'll have to see what that looks like. But Bader makes your team better. He has postseason pedigree. His numbers aren't incredible in the postseason, but he's been there with quite a few different teams. He's seen the postseason plenty, and he brings a little bit of that swagger that you need. Kind of some of that swagger that this team felt like they first had when they went out and got Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, and people have felt like might be missing as of late. This guy brings I like the way that Talkin' Jake said it on their instant reaction piece. He said the high tea is flowing over there in Philadelphia. So definitely one of the boys, if you will, Harrison Bader. I think he's going to be a good addition to the clubhouse and brings a little something that they might be missing. So might not be the big name, and we still have another half hour or so to go before that deadline. So who knows if another trade is made, but they gave up. I mean, ultimately you gave up four pieces, two of your top six prospects, but you gave up four pieces and were able to keep your three best and greatly improved in two areas. I'll take that every single day of the week.
So we really haven't addressed the Harrison Bader trade much yet. So I actually do want to hear everyone's take on this, because it seems to be a little divisive if it was, a big enough move for the Phillies to, compete with everyone else in the National League and ultimately for a World Series title. And just your overall takeaway on the player and the trade itself. Tim, we haven't heard from you in a minute here, so I'm going to swing it to you here. What do you think about Harrison Bader and the trade in general?
I'm not against it. I was a big proponent of bringing Crawford up with the disarray that the outfield is. But like you said, he gives you that playoff experience. He might not give you those Eugenio Suarez stats that you're looking for, the 35 home runs, and you're looking for a giant bat. But the guy can still play. He's hitting 260 on the year, which is something that seems like no one else in the outfield other than Marsh is really doing right now. I just don't know what they do going forward with him, because you're not going to make a move like that and not use somebody like a Harrison Bader. So he's definitely in a position there. But now you still have Castellanos. He's had his ups and downs, it's a lot more downs, it seems like, lately. Marsh has been tearing it up of late. And then you still have to deal with Rojas and Kepler, who should be designated anytime soon. But I like the move for Bader. He doesn't have to come in with a lot of pressure on him. We already have big names. We already have big bats. We need a good defensive center fielder who can actually hit above 210. And you're getting that. And he's going to be a bottom of the lineup guy that's going to get on base for somebody like Kyle Schwarber, who's hitting second, to get a lot more RBIs. And I know we talked about this at the beginning of the season with players like Marsh and Stott and those base hit guys getting on for Schwarber and Turner to drive in at the top of the lineup. I think that he's going to provide quite a bit of that, more so than this team has seen with the bottom of the lineup this far into the season.
So we also just had another trade come down. So before we hear from Corey on that, let's show this right here. Texas Rangers are getting Merrill Kelly. So veteran arm from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Kelly has had a actually very good season. 3.22 ERA and 128.2 innings, 121 strikeouts. He's been one of the better starters actually in the National League. But he is 36. He's a little up there. Does anybody have any specific thoughts on Merrill Kelly, or anything going back to the dreaded 2023 NLDS? I'll swing this to you, Corey.
No, I don't really have anything on Kelly, but on Harrison Bader, I think fans have to recognize and understand what this move is. This isn't a premier bat coming to the lineup. This is a solid bat. This is a bat that can help with the platoon of the outfield, but there weren't many premier bats other than Eugenio Suarez, and he went to Seattle, in the middle of the night, early this morning. So, Ramon Laureano could have been a guy maybe that I kind of had circled for the Phillies potentially. I know Adolis Garcia was kind of floating around at one point, but I think Harrison Bader, he's a fun ball player to watch. He's kind of old school. He plays with a lot of enthusiasm. I remember his stint with the Yankees. I followed them closely, and he had a monster postseason for the Bronx Bombers. He had 5 home runs in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So, I mean, this guy, he likes to play baseball. I think he's going to be a fantastic fit for the Phillies. You look at his splits. He's got a 779 OPS against righties, 774 OPS against lefties. So really no big difference there. On base percentage, north of 300, 347 against righties. And you have a little bit of control with him. I think he's got one more year under control that the Phillies can kind of work with. So I think Bader's going to probably slot into center field, as Zach says here. Marsh moves to left, and I agree. I'm curious if they're going to still call Justin Crawford up, because I was adamant that if they didn't get an outfielder by the deadline, that Crawford, without a doubt, would have been up with the Phillies tomorrow, and they were going to put him in left field or center field every day, because if you call this kid up, you can't platoon him. That's not helping him. That's not helping the team. If he's up, he is going to be your everyday outfielder in the 8 or 9 spot, and you just have to give him runway. You have to let him just deal with the lumps that he's going to take, because you have to see what you have in him. Now, is he going to be marginally better than Johan Rojas? Maybe. Is he going to be marginally better than Brandon Marsh? Maybe. Marsh has been pretty good, though, as of late. But with Bader now in the mix, I'm curious if they just keep Crawford, who, by the way, is only 21 years old, one of the younger players in all of AAA, down for the entire season, which wouldn't be the end of the world, or at the very least, call him up in September. He's not on the 40-man, so they're going to have to make a roster move to get him on the 40-man, which kind of makes things a little bit more complicated right now. But, back to Bader, I think it's a solid move given what this market was. Suarez would have been the premier bat, obviously. He went back to a familiar place, And Dave Dombrowski said, hey, we're going to take a look at Bader, and that's what they did.
So another couple.
Sorry.
Just quick,
Go ahead,
Kyle.
Alan.
I just want to add a couple other trades that just came down the pike. We have Willie Castro going from the Twins to the Cubs. Apparently for prospects, that's from John Heyman. Willie Castro was a guy that I kind of wanted on the Phillies. Guy that could play the outfield, play second base, kind of play round all over. And then also the Yankees are trading Oswaldo Peraza to the Angels. That's going to be definitely a little bit more of a minor deal that comes down the pike here, as I'm sure a couple others will go. Kyle, I'll swing it to you. First, I'll finish off your thoughts on Harrison Bader, and then if you have any thoughts on these couple of trades that are just breaking now, feel free to swing us your opinion.
Yeah, so Corey, just to kind of add on, he's had kind of even splits this season, but Bader traditionally has hit left-handed pitching pretty well. So above 800 OPS career against left-handers, which is huge. Obviously a little bit under that this season. Despite that, he's having his best overall season. So if he's hitting a little bit better against righties, even if it's a tick down against lefties, I'm satisfied with that. I heard a lot of people complaining about like, you traded for a 6-hitter or a 7-hitter. Well, when you have the superstars that the Phillies have, that's where those guys are going to go. Like Corey mentioned, it's really only Eugenio Suarez who was a difference maker, or at least somebody who was playing like a difference maker this season, right? There's guys who potentially could be one if they played like they did a year ago, 2 years ago. And the one thing that the Merrill Kelly thing really does to kind of tie into a recent trade is it proves that the Rangers are not still shopping Adolis Garcia. So anybody who was holding out hope that maybe they add another outfield bat in Garcia, if they're adding a player the caliber of Merrill Kelly, they are not going to be trading any pieces away at the same time. Corey, just to add some context, you mentioned that they do have a little bit of control with Bader. It's theoretical control. It's a mutual option. Mutual options are very rarely picked up at the major league level. It's only a $1.5 million buyout. So even if they do bring him back, it's likely that they would do it, take that buyout and then work on a longer extension. But we know how important it is to get guys in a clubhouse. I said that before the season, before they traded for Duran. If they were only able to get Helsley because the asking price for Duran was Painter and they weren't willing to go there, even if it's a rental, I'm willing to pay a little bit more for someone the caliber of Helsley, because you get him in this clubhouse, you show him what it means to win in Philadelphia, and you hope you can work on an extension during that exclusive negotiation period. So, it's not ideal that it's only 1 year, but you didn't give up one of your top 10 prospects to get him, and he brings that playoff experience here. Willie Castro, I agree. He could have been a guy that either helped Stott a little bit at second base, helped in the corner a little bit in the outfield. He kind of jack of all trades and is having his best offensive season. The Yankees one seems like a pretty minor one, but one of the other things that the Merrill Kelly trade does for me is it keeps him out of New York. It keeps both the Yankees and the Mets were heavily rumored to be involved in talks for Gallen and Merrill Kelly. And if Merrill Kelly is not going to New York, I feel pretty good about that as a Phillies fan. So although it's not a direct impact on the Phillies because he's going out of the National League to the American League, I still think that there's going to be a little bit of shockwaves there. I don't see the Rangers as going on a run, but glad that they feel like they are enough to keep him out of New York. I'll say that.
So my last thought on Harrison Bader, I think the defense is going to really help the Phillies here. I think he had about 1.2 D-WAR so far this year, and one of his best years defensively. And he's, I think 31. He's a club mutual option, so he could be here if he does succeed. So we'll see how that goes. But there's a rumor coming down the mill from J.P. Morosi. The Red Sox have made a late effort to acquire Joe Ryan, the, of course, ace of the Minnesota Twins staff and really one of the gems of the trade deadline. So we'll see if that happens. But if it does, it could really shake up this AL East. We've seen the Toronto Blue Jays already swing a trade today for Shane Bieber, which he's on a rehab assignment, so he could be back, and we'll see what form he's in. What do you guys think on this race in the AL East? I know we're here in the NL East, maintaining what we're doing and focusing on the Mets and such. But let's hear some of your thoughts on, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox. What's going on over there? And the Rays really haven't. Well, they did move one. They moved their one starter. Anyway, I'll swing this to Corey.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees were in desperate need of bullpen help. They got it getting Bednar and Bird. They traded for their top 20 prospects today. That's been the high price for relief pitching here this summer at the deadline. The Rays, they kind of faltered. They were doing pretty well, and now they're hovering around 500, actually playing the Yankees. They're in a rain delay for like 3.5 hours. I think they just picked back up. But the Rays are kind of that team where they're going to always sell, but be pesky enough where they can hang around and have the talent to sneak in as a wild card team. Boston has completely shifted their season around. I mean, when they traded Devers, a lot of people thought they're done. Like, how many years can they sell off a face of the franchise and continue to think that they're going to be relevant? Well, they're one of the hottest teams in baseball. They're right on the Yankees' heels. They're keeping Jhoan Duran. You mentioned Joe Ryan. I heard rumors about them pushing hard for him a few days before the deadline was approaching. So it doesn't surprise me. They've got some really young talent. Roman Anthony looks like he's coming into his own. He was the top minor league prospect in all of baseball just up until last month. And then, the Jays are pesky. I mean, the Yankees had an absolute meltdown in June. The Yankees went from, I think, they were up at 1 point, 7.5 games to the Jays, and they are now 3 behind Toronto. So, I mean, it kind of puts perspective how good Toronto has been playing, and it shows because they went for a bit of a riskier move with Shane Bieber, but it's showing that they're all in to at least make the playoffs. And, the Orioles are the Orioles. I don't know what they're doing. Mike Elias, I think, just loves having the title of having the best farm system, but that's not winning games at the major league level. So you can have the best farm system you want, but if it's not translating to wins at the big league level, then your seat's probably going to get warmer than you'd like. But yeah, the AL East, it's close. It's getting better than what it was. And a lot more teams are involved right now. And then lastly, not really to AL East, but I don't know if you had mentioned it, Alec, before I joined. Alex Call went to the Dodgers. So I don't know if you guys mentioned it, but I know there were some rumors swirling that he might be a fit for the Phillies. And I saw on Twitter that people were not liking the idea of Alex Call being that outfielder, but the Dodgers liked him enough. So he's heading out west.
It seemed like the visceral reaction to fans not wanting Alex Call he's been mainly a platoon guy this year. And I think everyone in Philadelphia is getting a little worn out on platoons. Just from last year to this year, a lot of fans just want a solid guy they can get behind and know he's going to be in the lineup pretty much every day. Now, I'm going to switch things up here. I want to go around and see what is everybody's favorite trade of the deadline been. Not exactly the biggest. We're not going to all choose Mason Miller to the San Diego Padres or the other Padres trade of Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Liriano. But let me start with Tim here. What's been your favorite trade of this deadline? No Phillies trades, though. Can't say a Phillies trade.
Well, you can't say a Phillies trade. Why would I do that?
Hey, I'm giving you a challenge here.
It's the only thing that I care about. I could care less about anybody else doing anything. I watched some of these teams sell off. The Miller one is intriguing to me because it seemed like for the longest time nobody was talking about him or Rooker moving, and that was going to be a big obstacle. But for the A's to get 4 top prospects, knowing that they still have, I believe, 2 more years before they head to Vegas, Rooker's going to be the face for the next couple of years for that team, obviously. But they loaded up on, obviously, the shortstop's the number 3 prospect in all of baseball. They look to be getting ready. So when they open Vegas, they're going to have a good, their goal is to have a good young team. With Miller, you're not sure what you're going to get. A guy that throws 104 miles an hour could be damaging to himself. Rooker's going to give you a good deal. I really like that deal for them. And I was an A's fan as a kid, but I really like seeing them get a bunch of good prospects for a guy, knowing that the Phillies only gave up 2 smaller ones to get Duran. So I'm really impressed with what the A's did.
All right, and Kyle, what has been one of your highlights of this trade deadline?
The corners going to Seattle in Josh Naylor and more specifically Eugenio Suarez. I mean, I know that
I
that's
think
a
you might
tougher
have taken
ballpark to
Corey's
hit.
answer.
Sorry,
It
Corey.
seems.
Sorry. But the talk all season long, even in the offseason, was, man, they need some help at first base. Man, they could use another bat in that lineup. And I know that Suarez has played there before, but he's having his best season, at least power wise, of his career. And he was a fan favorite up in Seattle. Like the Mariners tweeted out an old video of him standing on the field yelling "Seattle" right after the trade. And fans were so excited about it. And who doesn't love a midnight breaking trade? Like, I happened to be up last night doing something else and saw it, and I was like, "Oh, dude! Like, nobody else is awake to talk about this. But this is crazy." So I love the late night breaking news. Even Jeff Passan said, like, after he broke it, he said, "Midnight trades are awesome." So like that was fun, and I don't think the only way we're going to play the Mariners as a Phillies fan is in the World Series. So not an immediate threat to me, and I get to be excited for another fan base from afar. So nice to see them. They're an easy team to root for, an easy fan base to root for after all the struggles they've been through, despite the great names that have come through. So for me, that's the most exciting one for sure.
I'll agree on that just because the Mariners are a team that they feel like they deserve to have a run, and they need that offense. So it's exciting to see them actually adding some pieces, and we'll see how that goes. Corey, what's been your highlight of the trade deadline so far?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with David Bednar going to the Yankees. The Yankees just really needed to bolster the bullpen. My pick was Suarez. I agree 100,000% with what Kyle said. I think it's just a perfect fit for a team that always seems to be that first team out, if you will, where they're right there and then they just either fall apart at the end and they can't get that final wild card spot. But the Yankees bullpen has been struggling a lot. Devin Williams has not been the shutdown closer that he was with Milwaukee. Apparently, that's nothing new, though, to Brewers fans. I think Yankee fans saw the ridiculous numbers he put up and were like, oh, my God, it's an automatic 1-2-3 inning. That has not been the case, at least for Devin Williams with his time in pinstripes. But the Yankees have had really bad trade deadlines over the last 5 years. 2 years ago, they got Spencer Howard and Kenyon Middleton. Those were the only two upgrades for Brian Cashman and the Yankees. So this is not their strong suit over the last 5 years. They did address a much needed need and a hole to plug. They still need a starting pitcher, in my opinion, but I would go with Bednar there. That I think it's going to be a good fit. Change of scenery for him. He can play for some legitimate games that mean a lot instead of playing in front of a less than 75% full, beautiful PNC Park in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Dodgers, the Yankees did need to address their recent struggles. So Bednar is definitely going to be a big piece for them. Now, in my opinion, now let's not all jump on the team or the player, but I am kind of excited to see Carlos Correa back with the Houston Astros. This is a guy that led them to this postseason success, warranted or not, with certain not conspiracies, because it did happen.
Proven, yeah.
Yeah, it did happen. But it is kind of exciting to see him get back to the team where he first came up, found success. I think he's going to be there playing third base, if I read correctly. But Correa coming back to the Houston Astros, I think that's just a great fit, and I think it's a good story too. And it is kind of crazy because at first it didn't even seem like he was going to be traded yesterday. It said like, well, he's not going to waive his no trade. Seems like he's all in going back to the Astros. And the Astros are a really interesting team for the fact that they have suffered so many injuries this year. My one coworker is an Astros fan. It's like, yeah, we got like 12, 15 guys on the IL. I'm like, that can't be right. I looked, it basically is. They're getting a couple of guys back soon, but it's kind of crazy what they've been going through. So to see them being able to get a fan favorite back and really keep making a push in the AL West, I think it's a great story. So my pick would be Carlos Correa to the Astros from the Twins.
Does he come back to town with a trash can, or do they have one
In a
still
trash
there for
can,
him?
or
I would hope it's a fashionable Oscar the Grouch shirt. I
like
listen.
that.
I love subtle nods. I mean, I'm not happy about what happened, and I think the players from that whole thing should have faced some consequences because it was the worst scandal since 1919. So you think you'd want to put a heavy foot down, but that's a different topic for another day. This is trade deadline talk.
Yeah, but you know what, Alec? I actually agree with you. I text some people like, "Wow, he's heading back to the Astros," and everyone's like, "Yeah, but is that an impactful move?" I was like, "No, but it's a cool story. Like, he's a fan favorite there. He was there for a long time when they kicked off this stretch of success." So I agree with you. Good pick. And you were right. Dude, they have so many injuries. I mean, their big move was to switch out Tucker for Isaac Paredes. He's probably done for the year at this point. Jeremy Pena's on the injured list. Brendan Rodgers is on the injured list. They're still waiting for Yordan Alvarez to come back. Jake Myers is on the injured list. They also have like 7 pitchers on the injured list. So I know that the Astros have made some moves today. The Correa one was probably the biggest swing just because of what it took as far as money and everything. But yeah, that's a fun one for sure. If take the negative history out of it, it's a fun one for those fans at the very least.
Speaking of a fun one, we have a old friend alert. The Royals are apparently acquiring Bailey Falter from the Pirates. So Bailey Falter heading out to Kansas City. I honestly haven't seen how he's been doing. I know he had a really great start to the season. Yeah, he still has a 3.73 ERA and 22 starts this year. So good for Bailey Falter, getting a change of scenery anywhere, besides Pittsburgh, Colorado, or Miami, or the south side of Chicago, or any good destination. So congratulations to Bailey Falter for getting out of Pittsburgh.
It's amazing. He has a 7-5 record in Pittsburgh, and Skeens is what, 4-8.
I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
Yep.
Another trade that went down, Miguel Andujar going to the Reds.
Oh, okay.
Andujar had a really good year with the A's, and the Reds are hanging around. I didn't realize when they made that move for Hayes, I was a little confused. I thought they were out of it, but I lost track of how well they were doing. They're within striking distance of a wild card spot, so kind of cool to see Cincinnati be in it. Even the Angels, when they made that move yesterday for the pair of relievers, I thought for sure they were going to be selling, and Taylor Ward might be a Philly, but some teams are trying to make a push, which is good for the sport.
Yeah, and the Angels seem to do this every year where they just don't they won't commit to selling pieces that. Now, granted, Ward has another year of control after this year, and Adele has 2. So I think that it would have taken a lot to get those guys. But they did this with Shohei. They should have sent him out and got a king's ransom for 2 months of a guy. And instead they're like, we're kind of close, right? Let's hang on. I think for their fan base, it's good that they keep trying. You have Mike Trout there. You want to try and at least act like you're going to attempt to win when he's under contract still. So I agree with you to an extent, Corey, but I just don't understand that move from them at all.
So we do have we got one breaking trade, but I want to mention this first. Apparently the Marlins are not going to trade Sandy Alcantara, which seemingly is a huge mistake. I know he's having a down year, but you could have gotten something for an expiring contract, and they're not going to trade Sandy Alcantara. That is confusing to me.
Isn't everything from somebody that lives in South Florida for years, from 98 on, everything the Marlins do as an organization is questionable.
Well, 2004 on.
But even before that, when they won the title, then they sold off everybody, then they sold the team. And you go through from being down there, everything they've dealt with, it seems like you find a good prospect, they build them up, they trade them away, and it's constantly a retooling. The stadium's in I don't want to say a bad area like locally, it's just it was a poor spot for that. They're just a mismanaged organization, and it doesn't matter which owner's in there. You went from John Henry telling Miami when I was down there, I don't have any money to help you with a stadium, I need you to fully fund it. And the next year, when they did the whole swap out where the Nationals got, and then Luria went and took over the Marlins, and John Henry went up to Boston and magically had $600 million. Like,
Well,
nobody cares
let
about
me
the
interrupt you,
Marlins other
Tim,
than
real
getting that
quick.
check at the end of the year.
Let me interrupt you because we got another 2 trades that just came down. We got Dustin May heading to the Red Sox. So it seems like the Red Sox might be out of the Joe Ryan market. Instead, they get Carrot Top. But the Padres make another move and are getting nasty Nestor Cortez.
Wow.
So the Padres just keep adding and adding. We'll see what they actually give up for that. And I'm kind of surprised that the Brewers are sending anybody out, maybe with their young guys, with like Mizorowski. Maybe they don't have room in the rotation. I'm not sure what the situation is there. Corey, it seemed like you had the reaction there. What are your thoughts on these couple of trades coming down to the pike here?
Yeah, I mean, Dustin May is an intriguing arm for the Red Sox. If he can stay healthy, that could be an electric arm for them. Not a bad pivot from Joe Ryan. It's got to work out, obviously. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to give up. But that one, hey, again, I said it earlier, the Red Sox aren't messing around. Even though they traded Devers away, they're one of the best teams in baseball right now. And ironically, the Giants are the worst team in baseball since Devers joined them, offensively and record-wise. Nestor Cortez, it's solid. Some Yankee fans still might have PTSD from him giving up the grand slam to Freddie Freeman in the World Series, but that's besides the point. But yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point. I think the Brewers have a ton of talent manufacturing and developing their young pitchers, and Mizorowski is one of them. He could be their future ace, depending on how much longer Peralta hangs around. But yeah, I mean, AJ Preller out in San Diego, he's wheeling and dealing. I mean, like it, hate it, whatever. I have a couple of buddies that are Padres fans, and they're just kind of scratching their head like, what is this guy doing? I mean, it's basically, is he going to go all in this year? And if they get bounced in the first round, do they fire him because he basically blew up the entire farm system? Or does he stay around because he has the gumption to make these moves? Because let's face it, they have to compete with the Dodgers every year. So if you're not making moves to at least compete with LA, then I don't know what you're exactly doing in the NL West unless you're hoping for a wild card spot. So yeah, 2 interesting moves there for sure.
And we got another trade coming down. Now the Tampa Bay Rays sending Jose Caballero to the New York Yankees. So I believe that's MLB steals leader is going to the Yankees.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to just go across the hallway. They're playing each other right now.
Who did we see that with yesterday?
Sir Anthony Dominguez.
That's right. That's right.
Philly.
Another
he
old
made an
friend.
appearance that night too.
Really? That's crazy. It was in the middle of a doubleheader.
Yeah. He was traded in the middle of a doubleheader and then pitched against his former team in the night game.
Love that. We only have 7 minutes left in this deadline. So we'll see if Oh, we got another trade. We have Phil Maton going to the Rangers. I think that he was with St. Louis Cardinals this year, right? Phil Maton,
I believe he was the Cardinals, yeah.
So we have that going down. This has been one of the most active trade deadlines, I think, in recent memory. Tim, you have been around longer than any of us. So I'll throw this to you. Do you remember a trade deadline with this many deals going down? And we got another one. Cubs are acquiring Taylor Rogers from the Pirates. So the Rogers brother gets traded again.
This is crazy.
And Tampa Bay just got Adrian Hauser from the White Sox.
What is going on here?
Taylor Rogers just traded?
He was just... Tim, quick, say something while you can.
I can't keep up. No, this is chaotic because before
this is awesome.
A lot of teams wanted to hold on. I mean, years back when you guys were just starting kindergarten, the Yankees were just constantly moving players left and right. And every other team that the Yankees wanted to deal with, that was the most exciting part of the deadline. You'd get 4 or 5 trades and they'd re-gear up to try to win a World Series. But this is out of control now. It seems like every 5 seconds you're looking down as the wire comes down to it. And you're like, oh my God, somebody else, somebody else. I keep waiting for the Phillies to do one more, but I know they're done.
I was going to mention that, Tim. You see all these moves, guys. Is this worrisome for you that the Phillies may have just gotten Duran and Bader? Now, I don't think that's a terrible deadline, but I think a lot of fans are hoping, or we're hoping for more. Obviously, there's 5 minutes until 6, and then there could be deals that trickle in past the deadline as long as they get it to the league office in time. But if it is just those 2 guys, how would you grade this deadline now?
I'd have to say a high B, and I'm going to say why. The maneuverability of the parts that the Phillies have, and I think that Dombrowski might be looking at that saying, hey, Bader gives us some experience. He does give us depth, but he gives us a good starter in center field. Obviously, Duran is on a different level, but that enables you to say, hey, we have our closer. Now Kerkering and Strahm, if Robertson comes back up, you get a couple of guys for your middle bullpen stuff. Marsh has been playing great. JT has been playing since May. I think JT is hitting 300 since June 1st. Marsh is up over 300. Harper seemed like he just needed 10 days back before he started raking. Kyle Schwarber is an extra $1 million on his yearly contract every game he plays. Everybody's been playing like you would expect a team with this type of name recognition to do. And just those 2 little moves allow you to utilize players like you should have utilized them earlier. The bullpen wouldn't have been a mess if Alvarado was closing every game. Now you have players like I said, Marsh has been tearing it up lately, playing better. If he's more relaxed and knows that left field is his spot and he's going to bat 8th or 9th every game, then let it happen. Same thing with JT. JT's moved up from 7th to 5th and all, and he's been raking. It doesn't matter. He's not hitting home runs. He's still driving in runs and getting hits. The team really is starting to come together. And I think you give them a B because they didn't get that one huge bat name, Aquan or somebody like that they were, or Eugenio Suarez. But I see Alec pointing. So go ahead, Alec.
So Luis Robert isn't moving.
Thank God.
He is not moving. So the Phillies don't have to worry about where he's going. That's from Mark Feinsand. So that's good news for the Phillies. That is obviously someone that has been of conversation. He's definitely the ultimate change of scenery guy. I don't know how him and his agent are going to reconcile having to probably stick with the White Sox for another year. So we'll see how that situation plays out.
Well, is it a player option or a team option?
No, it's a club option, but it's $20 million. So we'll see if they pick that up. I'm assuming they're going to if they're keeping him. So
yeah, I don't see why you would keep the guy and then just let him walk at the end of the year. Apparently, the reason the asking price was so high is because they still feel like he has that ability in him, and they looked at him as more than a rental. That was what I read in the Zielecki and Gelb articles.
He's still only 27, correct?
He's young.
I know he's young. I don't know his age.
He might be a little older, but to Kyle's point, to view him as a controllable player with a pair of $20 million options with the lack of production he's been putting up is almost laughable. In my opinion. Yeah, he is 27.
Yeah, it is. You can't show me a guy hitting under 250 and having this season compared to last season, which was also laughable, and say, yeah, no, we're gonna need more in a trade. To be like, you have no leverage. Calm down, White Sox. But a fun little trade note here. The Adrian Hauser trade. White Sox to the Rays. The player going back to the White Sox is Curtis Mead. Curtis Mead, of course, is the young player that the Phillies shuffled to the Rays for one Christopher Sanchez. So that trade is coming full circle now. Does everybody remember when Mead was added to like top 100 lists and Christopher Sanchez still wasn't Christopher Sanchez now? and everybody was panicking that the Phillies lost a top 100 prospect.
Yeah, I mean, come on. And anybody who's near the bottom of the top 100, I don't have faith until you come to the major leagues and show it anyway. So, of course, people are going to freak out about something like that. But the tough part is that the Phillies haven't always been the best at developing. So when you see somebody crack the top 100, you're like, oh, man, we got somebody. Don't let them go. Well, sometimes you got to let things go to make better things happen. And we see what Sanchez has turned into. Guys, we are officially at 6
big
o'clock.
Trade. We got a big trade just coming down. This one's for you, Corey. Yankees are acquiring Camilo Doval from the Giants.
Wow.
Corey, give us your take on this one.
Jeez.
I think you're muted there. Can't hear
we
you,
lost
Corey.
There we go. I'm
there you are.
So,
Let's hear your
know if you're
thoughts on this.
speechless or not.
No, I mean, that would have been the option B for the Yankees, I think, if they didn't get Bednar. Once the Giants came out yesterday saying that Doval would be available, I think that piqued a lot of interest from a handful of teams needing relief help. So, the Yankees still need a starting pitcher, but I think they're going to revamp that whole bullpen now, and the offense is there. So, and the American League is weak, guys. I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the top teams in the American League compared to the National League. It is like night and day difference, the top 3-4 teams record-wise and all that stuff. But, I mean, Alec, you mentioned it before. This might be one of the most active trade deadlines of recent memory.
Yeah, it just seems like Tim said, every 5 seconds, some news happening. And even though we're at the deadline now, that does not mean trades are done, because the paperwork could have been sent in by the deadline and just haven't been announced. There was a note from John Heyman that the Tigers were working hard for a starting pitcher. So we'll see if the Tigers get anybody in time here, but we'll see if this is truly it. Oh, wait, let's see.
Wow.
The Tampa Bay Rays are getting
What are the
Griffin
Rays
Jax.
doing?
What are the Rays doing?
Are they selling? Are they buying? What are they doing?
They're doing what the Rays do. They do this every year.
I wonder if they
traded their catcher and then traded for a catcher. I don't know what's going on here.
Charlie Morton is also apparently a Tiger.
This is, oh my goodness.
Old man Charlie Morton to the Tigers. John Heyman.
Didn't Charlie Morton start pitching in like 1986?
No, but do you remember opening day 2012? Phillies in Pittsburgh, Roy Halladay against Charlie Morton. And everyone was talking about how Charlie Morton imitated Roy Halladay's delivery. That's how old Charlie Morton is.
He pitched against a dead guy.
I mean, I didn't say it, but, it's true. Oh, boy. Wow. What is Byron Buxton doing? Not waving his he did just get injured.
He might do it in the offseason now.
The only Twins that are under control for next year are Byron Buxton and Pablo Lopez.
Wow. Remember that Pablo Lopez trade for Luis Arraez. Oh my goodness. I think the Twins are almost ready to sell their franchise too. I think they're getting ready for a sale.
I still can't believe that Griffin Jax trade to the Rays. I just don't know what they are.
And we have Louis Varland going to the Blue Jays from the Twins. The Twins full on fire sale.
Jeez.
Wow.
Jeez, that's
there was a report as saying an anonymous player was heard saying if they're selling like this, nobody's going to want to stay.
Yeah, I can't believe Buxton. Buxton's got to be walking into somebody's office right now. What the hell, guys? You could have given me a heads up. You could have moved me too.
Yeah, good on him. Hey, I'm a Minnesota Twin. And I respect that. I love that about guys that are true to their team in a world where it's all about getting your bag and loyalty is kind of out the window. He flat out said, "No, I am a Minnesota Twin. I am not getting traded." Showing his loyalty, and now he's looking around a clubhouse and he's got nobody left.
Yeah,
Did-
he's
Did
literally Will
Dombrowski put his
Smith.
phone down and get on a roller coaster for a little bit? Like what? All these moves that could have happened. I don't know what's going on here.
I'm curious
I
what the
guess
Twins are getting for Jax, though, because that's got to be a decent haul.
yeah, we're gonna have to monitor that as it comes through. But I feel like just people are feel left out because the Phillies kind of did this early being yesterday and earlier this afternoon with their two moves. But I think the Phillies still got what they needed, and I think they're going to be okay. We'll break that down as soon as the madness finally calms down. I'm still vigorously scrolling through Twitter, and I'm not calling it X. I never will.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm good on that.
But yeah, let's
Ty France traded to the Blue Jays. Apparently,
Who's that?
Ty France.
Ty France.
Oh my goodness.
Who doesn't love a little French?
Man, we gotta see. I'm trying to look at deadline trackers to see if there's like any other breaking news.
How do you
since
guys
you guys are
feel-
scrolling Twitter already?
How do you guys feel knowing that the last maybe 10 or 12 minutes that we've been talking has been constantly like, oh, wait a minute, because of all this. How do you
exciting.
feel about Dombrowski now? Because, like you just said, Kyle, they've made a bunch of moves, or the Phillies made two moves, and then with this just flurry of deals at the end of it, do you feel like they could have done more? I know Alec just said that they're going to be fine, but is it disappointing now as you see this? It wasn't disappointing 30 minutes ago, and now all of a sudden all these players are getting moved.
No, I'm not disappointed. I think I'm a little more surprised that like if there's this flurry from some of their top competitors that they didn't pull something else off. But I think that Dombrowski doesn't seem like a guy to panic. I mean, he's been around this block quite a few times, and he's a guy who all along has said we don't need to go make major improvements. The guys we have on this roster need to perform, and that stands true. I mean, it doesn't matter who you go out and trade for. They could have traded for Cedric Mullins or whoever else in the outfield, and any of these guys who have moved recently. But if Duran doesn't perform in his spot, well, you gave up the most for him. If Wheeler, Sanchez, Suarez don't perform in their spots, then it doesn't matter who else you could have added to the team. If Bryce Harper and Trey Turner don't hit in big spots in the postseason, it's not going to matter if Harrison Bader could hit 900 in the postseason. If those guys don't come up big, that's what matters most. You know, Nick Castellanos is making $20 million. If he doesn't do well in the postseason, that's a bigger loss than anything that they missed out on at this deadline. So it's not that he feels like the roster they've put together is good enough, and he wanted to add in not necessarily the margins because Duran is a big pay, but you wanted to solidify what you felt was already a championship caliber-esque roster, and that's what they did. So I think in the moment you can feel like lost and feel like, oh, man, we missed out on something, just like I reacted naturally in a similar way. But when we look at everything tomorrow and the dust settles, we're going to be like, oh, so we're going to see this guy was an overpay. This was an overpay here. This was this move. I don't know how much that really makes them better. What do you got, Alec?
The cost for Griffin Jax was Taj Bradley.
Oh,
Taj Bradley
wow.
is like a young starter for the
Yeah.
Rays who was just sent down to get a little bit right, but he had been one of the top prospects, top pitching prospects in baseball. I'd say he was a top 50 prospect consensus. That's a high price. That's Mick Abel, but with more seasoning and better stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. So definitely, like that was their move, right? They traded their Mick Abel and they got the better of the relievers. So yeah, it's like could they have potentially added more to get somebody else? But if I'm the Twins, I wouldn't have done that if I know that I can get two of them. Instead of like, hey, Philly's throwing another guy and we'll give you Griffin Jax. If I know I can get two really young, controllable starters by doing two separate deals, I'm going to do that every single day of the week. So it's one of those like, yeah, you can say that you wanted Dombrowski to do more, but we don't know what those talks are going to be. And you have to take what these guys say at face value because we're not involved in those conversations. We're going to hear from, not here on the stream, but the media is going to hear from Dombrowski around 6:30. Our guy Sean Nestor is going to be on that call, and he'll give us some updates from that discussion. So make sure you follow Sean on Twitter for any updates there, and hopefully we'll have something out on PSN regarding that. But yeah, it's easy to feel like, oh, he didn't do enough. Well, he got the thing that we needed the most, which was a closer, and
he
the
got
bullpen,
the best closer.
Exactly, he got the guy. It's
We
not
weren't
just a
bargain
guy.
shopping for this guy.
Exactly.
And
We got the best one.
And I think a lot of people fail to realize sometimes it's quality over quantity with this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, yes, as you just said, they got the top closer in the market. And from what I think, yes, a bit of a steep price. I'm sure Alec and Tim talked about it to open the show. All things considered, in my opinion, it wasn't that steep. Everybody wrote off Mick Abel until this year. I mean, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knew who Eduardo Tait was until the end of April when he absolutely tore the cover off the baseball. And that's what happens with these prospects. But as you know, people understand, and Kyle, you mentioned a little bit too with that move, it fits the Phillies' window to win now. Does it sting that Tait might be a slugging DH catcher, first baseman in 6 years? Sure. But if Duran is closing out the final game of the World Series, nobody's going to remember that at all. So to me, I think Dombrowski did a phenomenal job with the package in the return. Again, I'm not saying those two are slouches by any means. I think Mick Abel could be a really solid starting pitcher. Only 6 starts in the bigs. That's way too small of a sample size to say he's good, bad, or indifferent. But all things considered, we saw some of the prices that these teams paid for back-end relievers. I think the Phillies may have given up the least in terms of prospect value and just quantity of the players. So I think fans got to realize, like, yeah, it'd be nice to get maybe another outfield batter or right-handed bat, but the Phillies offense is still one of the better offenses in the league. They're top 5 in runs scored per game, and they're in the bottom 5 in strikeouts per game. So, I mean, they're offensively still really solid. They have the best starting rotation in the big still. You anchor it with an electric arm to close it out. I mean, I can't wait to see his entrance this weekend. I'll be at the game Sunday. I don't know, Kyle and Alec, if you guys are going to be at the bank this weekend, but that's going to be absolutely rocking the first few times that he comes out. But
oh yeah,
you know, I just think Dombrowski did what he had to do. And like we talked about earlier, there wasn't really any more premier bats aside from Suarez. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt.
And think about this. Right now, the bullpen is Matt Strahm and Kerkering are the anchors. And then you have Jordan Romano, Tanner Banks, who's pitching well this season, Daniel Robert, Seth Johnson, Max Lazar. Guys that have done the job that you know, maybe a better job than you could have asked at some points. Taijuan Walker going in and out. In the next 2 weeks, by August 18th, if everything goes well with the guys that they signed and the guys who are recovering from injury and Alvarado coming back from, you're looking at a bullpen that by the end of September, for the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, is going to be Jhoan Duran, Orion Kerkering, Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado, Tanner Banks, David Robertson, Taijuan Walker, and either Romano, Ross, or Lazar. And who knows what happens there? And then when rosters expand, maybe one of the other guys comes back, or who knows if they even keep Romano at that point. And then postseason, when Alvarado walks away, Luzardo slides right into that spot. That is a strong depth of bullpen. And I think people are forgetting that, like, yeah, okay, whatever. Who cares if Daniel Roberts 40 years old? He proved last year he's an effective pitcher still. He's going to be like the Pedro Martinez in 2009. Obviously not the same level of competitor and not a starting pitcher, but you have somebody with a long pedigree in the postseason, pitched with the Yankees for a long time in the postseason. He's going to come in here and bring that pedigree to that pen, add to some of the young guys that they have back there in Banks and Kerkering. And everybody behind Duran, I think one thing that people are losing is, I think closer by committee can work, because if nobody is the diehard closer, then you just play the matchup. But Duran is going to let all these guys get more comfortable. Everybody's going to be like, oh, I don't have to worry about where I know I'm not pitching 9 because that guy's got it. And he's the shutdown guy. He's got my back. I'm going to go do what I got to do in the 6th. I'm going to go do what I do in the 7th to get to him. It's no longer a worry of, man, if I'm our best bet, what's going to get there? And I don't think anybody honestly thinks that way, but subconsciously, oh man, what if I screw up, what's going to happen behind us? We're at the end of the rope here. Well, you know who's behind you. It's the best closer in the biz right now in Jhoan Duran. And that makes you feel more comfortable. And of course, in the postseason, they'll take a different approach, attacking the strongest parts of the lineup. But man, like, you can feel like, oh, we didn't make enough moves. But if the moves were quality, like you guys just said, the quality of the move and the lack of pieces you had to give up compared to what you're seeing for some
another
of these
late
guys,
breaking trade.
incredible. What do we got?
We got Mike Yastrzemski to the Royals.
Wow. Okay. Giants doing a little bit of a sell-off, huh? What are the
Yeah.
Royals doing, by the way?
I think
out of it, and they're
don't
picking
know.
up people.
Yeah, I follow the Royals because when I worked in minor league baseball, the team I was with was affiliated with them. So I still follow a lot of the beat writers and bloggers and stuff. The Royals are too good to tear it down, but not good enough to be fully all in. So I think they're trying to refine the edges a little bit and hope they could get on a run and maybe sneak into the wild card spot. I mean, they made the postseason last year, so they've got the pieces to do it. Just trying to make a little improvements here and there.
I do want to address the panic that I see a lot of people on Twitter right now from Phillies fans saying they didn't do enough. They could have done more. Maybe they could have gotten another reliever. Maybe. I don't think there's much more that they could have done. You see, Luis Robert didn't get moved. He was kind of like the big center field guy. Like, oh, what if he comes to Philly and he shows what he did 2 years ago or 3 years ago, which he honestly could have, but he wasn't moved. Stephen Kwan, the big guy from Cleveland getting in here, exciting players, speed, mix of everything, 5-tool player. He wasn't traded. The Phillies got Harrison Bader, who's great defense, and this year is having a great offensive season. If that translates to the Phillies, he's going to be a great fit. And we've all said it. Jhoan Duran is one of the best closers in baseball. Certainly was the best closer on the trade market. Maybe Miller down the line ends up being a better closer, but he's still not battle tested. Duran's actually been in playoff games, and he has a 0 ERA in the postseason in 4 games. It's not a big sample size, but he's done it. So I think the Phillies did exactly what they needed to do. They added an outfield bat with good defense, and they got the star-studded closer that everybody wanted, and they actually pushed some of their bigger chips into the middle of the table, and they didn't flinch when it was time to call.
I agree. And I think with them just getting Bader, I do think this still opens up the window for Justin Crawford to be a full-time outfielder for at least August. So I think that is also why they didn't go out and get another outfielder or another bat, because now they're kind of playing the numbers game on how they're going to navigate this outfield. Rojas has options. March has options. I believe Weston Wilson might have one more left. But again, somebody has to be DFA'd because I looked this morning, Crawford's not on the 40-man. So they're going to have to do something to get him on that 40-man roster. But I think, and I thought this before the deadline, that Justin Crawford played his last Lehigh Valley game yesterday because they got rained out today. Aaron Nola was supposed to rehab for the Iron Pigs this afternoon up in Worcester, but that game got canned. I would be shocked if Justin Crawford is not up by tomorrow or by the end of this week. I think that they're going to have Bader platoon with at least those 3 guys. Maybe they cut ties with Kepler. We've seen what they've done with Austin Hayes and Whit Merrifield, guys that just don't work, and they just say, hey, all right, we're going to move with the guys that we have more allegiance to. But if they do call Justin Crawford up, you have to play him every day, and I think he can provide a spark at the bottom of the order. He's not going to hit for power. He's going to hit the ball on the ground. He's going to use his lightning speed to get around the bases. And everybody's like, oh, well, launch angle and, 60% ground ball rate. He gets on first base. He can steal second in a couple pitches, and guess what? That's a quasi extra base hit there for you. So you can't take away this guy's speed, which is one of his best tools that he has. If he's hitting the ball in the air, he can't use his speed to put pressure on the defenses. And yes, I get that it's major league infield, and some of those ground balls that probably snuck through in AAA may get gobbled up. They could get gloved, but then the guy has to make a ridiculous throw to get the speedy Justin Crawford. Like, this isn't like a equation where it's like, oh, well, it's a ground out and he's an automatic out. This guy is different. I'm not saying he's going to be a perennial all-star, but they have to see what he is about, because he could be a nice role player this year down the home stretch to provide some speed and some spark at the bottom of that lineup.
Were you there last week, Corey, when I watched the play where Crawford he bounced the ball to second, and it wasn't deep second base. It was right in the base path line, and he beat out he bounced it to the second baseman and beat out the throw to first.
Yeah, I was at that game, and then was it yesterday or 2 days ago, he had a terrible bunt, try to bunt his way on. It went right back to the pitcher, and he beat it out. And then he stole second base for his 32nd stolen base of the season. So, I mean, this is what this guy can bring. I know we love analytics. I know we're in love with launch angles and exit velocity and all these metrics. But at the end of the day, baseball is still played pretty much the same way it was over 100 years ago. You got to put the ball in play. That's what this kid does. Look at his ability to put the ball in play. I mentioned it with Kyle on Alley Talk last week. Something that is kind of hard to quantify unless you've got some back-end stat portals. He sees a ton of pitches too. He's very patient. So this is going to be a guy who comes up there and swings out of his shoes necessarily. Yeah, he's going to have some tough games. He's going to take his lumps and bruises, but they got to see what this kid is made of, at least in my opinion.
Now, I do think we need to go over what the Mets did, as the Phillies are in a division race with the New York Mets. The Mets did acquire 3 bullpen arms, one of them not much of an arm, in Gregory Soto, but then also getting Cedric Mullins today. What do we think about what the Mets did? And they didn't really access any of it. I think their top 7 prospects all stayed, so they didn't really touch any of their bigger guys. Kyle, what would you say about what the Mets did, and what does it mean for the Phillies going down the stretch here?
Well, I think that, Cedric Mullins is, to me, that was kind of like a push, right? I don't know how much he would have done for the Phillies different than what they have now. I like the Bader fit a little bit more. It's clearly something that they needed. I think that if they got a bigger name than what the Phillies did, I think I'd put those two on a similar level. So I might feel a little differently about it had they acquired if they got Luis Robert just because of the potential alone, I might be a little bit more worried about it. But clearly that they were a team that I looked at the entire time as a team that was ready to push all in, and they made quite a few moves. They may not have gotten a guy the caliber of Jhoan Duran, but they already have that at the end of the bullpen with Edwin Diaz. So to bridge the gap for them, especially a team that I think in the starting rotation has over-delivered a little bit, you've now shortened the game for those starters. So they have a couple guys who you were getting worried about, like in Clay Holmes and Andrew Heaney and a couple other guys where you thought maybe they won't be able to keep this going all season long. Well, now they don't have to. They can be a little bit more careful with those guys, because when you add 3 quality relievers to that depth, a guy with the experience at the back end of games with Helsley, I think that, that they made great improvements, and I could see why Phillies fans, as long as they're doing informed takes, I'm not looking at every Phillies fan on Twitter as necessarily informed takes, but what people who I respect in the game, I can see them being a little bit disappointed. I like to look at it as, did the Phillies address some of their concerns? Yes, they did. They got better. Solid deadline, right? I'm not going to say that they had the best deadline in the league, but the Mets did have a good deadline as well. So you didn't take a clear advantage over them at this point. You're still a game and a half behind them, and they made a little bit more improvements than the Phillies did, even if I think the moves that the Phillies made rounded them out very well.
Yeah, and Cedric Mullins, I prefer Bader over Cedric Mullins, honestly. Cedric Mullins hasn't been rated great as a center fielder, especially this year. D-WAR is not looking great on him. I was just looking on Baseball Savant, their stat arm value. They have him at the 1 percentile in arm value. Arm strength, they have him as 47th percentile. Still has good range, but They also have an expected batting average of 216. I'd much rather have Harrison Bader than Cedric Mullins right now, in my opinion.
Well,
Now,
don't you
as
think that those
for
guys? Sorry, Al. Don't you think
no,
those
no,
guys like
what were you saying?
Mullen and Robert and Buxton? They're the people that are available, or quote unquote going to be available. So everybody blows them up more than you would see somebody else that wouldn't get moved. Is that what the issue is going to be when people look at it and go, oh, well, Cedric Mullins, Luis Robert Jr., uh, Byron Buxton, these are guys that should be moved. So then they kind of inflate them. And I'm just talking about people like you say it on Twitter and stuff, and talking heads on radio, and I'll say, hey, these guys are the moves you should have made. When like Kyle just said, Corey said about the team made the right moves for the Phillies. These guys are just overinflated because that's who was supposed to be available.
And people will pull up Baseball Reference and see, oh, he hit 38 homers one time. He had a 30-30 season. He could do that for us. Well, he hasn't done it in 2 years. You know, Cedric Mullins, yeah, he had a great season a few seasons ago. He's been an average hitter since then. You know, he's not the same glove that he used to be in center field, despite if you Google his name, you can find really flashy plays from a couple years ago. You know who else made flashy plays? Ben Revere. General consensus on him was that he read the ball poorly and had to make flashy plays to make up for it. So, yeah,
I
Tim,
still maintain I
you're
had a
onto
better
something.
arm than Ben Revere.
Everybody had a better arm than Juan Pierre at the very least. So,
No.
It's not confirmed, unrelated, but I did just see a report that Shelby Miller is going to the Brewers.
Oh. How'd they sneak that one in?
I saw it floating around. I'm waiting to see if Passan or any of the other big guys,
Yeah.
but that is floating about right now.
He was on the Diamondbacks, right, Miller?
Yep.
That's right, which is really funny because he initially went there in the trade for Dansby Swanson and somehow returned.
I know we're talking about the Mets and what they did. Are we surprised the Braves didn't sell more? I mean, they didn't do anything.
I don't know if they had problems with 10-5 rights between like Ozuna and Iglesias, but yeah, it is kind of shocking that they didn't do much at all. Or do you think they're just going to try to run it back next year?
I don't know. Those are two guys they could have traded for sure. I mean, Ozuna would have gotten something. He's a big time power hitter, and there's surprisingly a lot of teams that were lacking at DH. Seattle was one of them, and they addressed it through Suarez and Naylor. So maybe they weren't getting what they wanted, and they're thinking they can run back to 2021 formula and just hope that they get hot. Who knows?
MLB Trade Rumors has a article out saying Brewers to acquire Shelby Miller, so that does seem like it is happening.
Yeah, I see that as well.
Oh, good thing the Guardians claimed Carlos Hernandez, so that's glad that broke in the middle of everything.
It apparently includes more than just Shelby. Apparently, who is this? Looks like a radio host out of Phoenix, so we'll see how reputable he is as a source, but a long-time sports radio out of Phoenix. So we'll see if that trade turns into more than just Shelby Miller.
I can't wait to see all these polls on social media grading this deadline because I was just scrolling through Twitter. Phillies fans are not happy. Like, they are not happy. So we might be in the rare corner, or the boat that isn't filled right now, because we believe that they're solid moves. They could have done maybe a little bit more, but I don't think you could be mad at what they've done.
Unless Tim has some. Oh, there he goes.
You have. We could do a whole other episode on how I feel about Philadelphia fans, knowing that I'm an obnoxious one myself. They're all going to next year, when, let's say, Bader and Duran work out phenomenally, they'll be the first ones out, standing outside the bar, having a cigarette and saying how they knew it was happening. Don't get me started. My question to you guys is, everybody's going to give a hard time about Alvarado coming back, and they all know that Alvarado can't play in the playoffs, that Nola's been hurt, Bohm is now hurt. But if you're Dave Dombrowski, do you look at something like, if Alvarado's there for September, and we already know what we're getting out of him, he provides a little bit of not relief for the team, but relief for Duran, relief for Kerkering, relief for Strom, where he's going to allow you to have that arm, and you're like, hey, we're not worried about him pitching in the playoffs because he can't do it. Go out there and give these guys a little bit of a break. So our bullpen that's been so horrible this year is going to have more live arms in the playoffs because he allows you to rest those guys on. You don't want to pitch Duran on 3 close games, maybe if they're playing the Mets in a series or something. And you're like, hey, we can throw Alvarado out there and give Duran a rest. Same thing with Kerkering or Strom and stuff. Bohm comes back. If Nola comes back and does well, that's another one that opens it up where you're expanding these. Like, these are more maneuvers, and I know that it's going to be the excuse that Dombrowski uses, everybody will say, but realistically, you're talking about getting 3 good players back for the end of the year, or 3 very good players for the end of the year to make it easier on the rest of the team.
Yeah, it's weird because Dombrowski has said that from the beginning, and people just don't want to hear that. But Aaron Nola is going to add length to the rotation, and as a result, the bullpen. Like you just outlined, Jose Alvarado, if he pitches even close to how he did the last 2 seasons, doesn't have to be how electric he looked at the beginning of the year. If he pitches anywhere close to what he did the last 2 seasons, that is an extra arm that allows you to, like you said, I mean, he might be on board with this as a way to apologize to his teammates. They might run him out there 2-3 days in a row just to give these other guys a reprieve because they know, hey, you're going to have an extra month compared to the rest of us to recover. Like there's moves that are going to happen. And Corey, who knows? Andrew Painter could get called up tomorrow. Justin Crawford could get called up tomorrow. And all of a sudden you're looking at, what feels like 2 additions is really 4, plus Robertson in 2 weeks, plus Nola when he comes back. Plus, like, all of a sudden, I know they're not actual trade deadline moves, but you have like 7 new or returning players coming back in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Look, I understand why you could get frustrated. I know what Twitter is, so I take all that with a grain of salt. I get feeling like not enough was done. But like Tim said, if they go out there and perform, then guess what? It was enough. I'm going to quote what
the Phillies had a late move.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah. This is just from the PR email. The Phillies have acquired Matt Manning from the Tigers, which it's an intriguing arm and some depth for them. There's
Let's see.
It's not going to be big.
They designated him for assignment, so it's a nice little pickup. But the Tigers did. I mean, when they traded for somebody else, they designated him for assignment. But little depth, younger guy, only 26 years old, starting pitching depth. Maybe they move him to the bullpen. Maybe they see something they like with him.
Sad news, though.
Last year.
Lehigh Valley's team barber Devin Sweet was DFA'd for the corresponding.
That was one of the better stories that came out of Lehigh Valley this year.
That's
Manning's interesting. You know, like Kyle mentioned, 27 now. He's pitched in 50 career games, a 4.43 ERA. I know he's been dealing with an injury bug. Not a big strikeout guy, but you can never not have enough pitching. So see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting ad. Give some length to the pen or just depth in general, some starting depth. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say in that move. We have Stanley Kropinski asking what they give up. It was
18-year-old.
Started with a Q.
Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt to do that.
Oh, Joseph Quinones.
You nailed it. There you go, Tim.
You missed the Enye, but close enough.
Now, what you do is you attack it and you just say that's how it's said.
Well, yeah.
Look, Stephen A. Smith has made millions off of doing just that. So,
that's fine. Like but this is Tim Sullivan, and I have to attack him.
So the Quinones is an outfielder who is 18 years old from Venezuela, and he is in the Dominican Summer League, hitting 287 with the 777 OPS, 2 homers, 16 runs batted in, 5 steals, more walks than strikeouts in his young career, 28 to 24. And he's a ball magnet. He's been hit 9 times in each of his first
Jordan Montgomery is part of the Shelby Miller trade.
Wow.
So they trade They trade Nestor Cortez to the Padres, and they get Jordan Montgomery to the Brewers, along with Shelby Miller.
And haven't
That's
the
for
D-backs
John
been trying to
Heyman.
get out from underneath Montgomery, like since the moment they signed him?
Yeah, well, didn't their owner like publicly bash him?
Yep.
Yeah, it was so embarrassing.
Like, I still can't believe that happened.
So, of note, for those who like to dabble in gambling, post-deadline odds to win the World Series right now. I'll open up to you guys first. Who do you think is the front runner?
Ooh,
The Dodgers.
Yep, Dodgers are at plus 240. Who is second?
The Mets.
is it the Padres?
It's
It
got to
is
be
not.
the Phillies.
Is it
Gotta
the
be
It
Blue
is
Jays?
the Philadelphia Phillies at
Oh.
plus 800.
Oh
The
wow, that's a
Dodgers
big
plus
drop.
240. Yankees are third. Tigers and Mets are tied for fourth at plus 1,000. And the Astros are at plus 1,100, rounding out your top six.
I'm just saying, value pick Blue Jays. I don't want them to win the World Series, but I think that might be a value pick.
At my age, I don't think I could take another Phillies Blue Jays World Series.
Of all of us that remember,
Listen, that's still heartbreaking.
I'm so happy that was 3 years before I was born.
I was a year old. Yep.
I was drinking and smoking something out on my friend's porch when he hit it.
Oh no.
Ooh, how old was I? I was 4, but I was also like 13 years away from being a dad. So, you know.
I guess that makes you an old 4.
That's
Is that what you want us to say?
That's one way to kind of
A
clarify.
veteran 4-year-old.
An old 4.
Old
What a
4
way
is
to
a
cap
great
things off. We gotta cut
I
that one
think-
for sure.
Yeah, I think that is a good way to wrap things up here
Oh my
as we all age ourselves here at PSN. Thank you all for joining us today. If you stuck with us for the whole hour and a half, I have no idea why, but thank you anyway if you did. It's been a wild trade deadline. Still things I'm sure to process, prospects to evaluate, so forth and so forth. But all we can say now is let's see what Bader and Duran do. So for myself, Kyle.
Wait, we got to plug
Oh.
tomorrow's Alley Talk. We have to plug tomorrow's Alley Talk. Come on,
Kyle,
man.
since you'll be hosting, why don't you give everybody a preview of what you'll be talking tomorrow?
Every single Friday on Alley Talk, we talk all the latest and greatest Phillies news, 2 p.m. Eastern, here on Philly Sports Network's YouTube and Twitter accounts. So make sure you check us out tomorrow. We will have all the details of the trade. So our focus, I'm going to have a whole spreadsheet put together. No, I won't. It's just going to be a Google Doc, but same idea. I'm going to have a nice doc put together breaking down how the other top contenders in the National League got better, how they compare, and what some of the grades are out there for all of the trades. Obviously, we know Duran will be an A, but how will the overall Phillies moves rate against some of their top competitors like the Dodgers, Padres, and Mets? Anybody from the team who can join, it's usually a solo show, but anybody who can will. And we'll have some updates from Dombrowski's actually meeting with the press right now. Our guy Sean Nestor's on there, so if he can tweet anything right after, make sure you give him a follow at Sean_Nestor. And all of our guys who have our Twitter handles up here, make sure you follow us as well, or Philadelphia SM. But yeah, tomorrow's Alley Talk, 2 o'clock. I'll be talking with all the details revealed on all the trades and how the trade deadline impacted the Phillies' schedule moving forward.
And what time is that?
2 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Corey, do you have anything to plug on your end?
Not really. I'll be at the game on Sunday for Sunday Night Baseball for PSN. So it'll be good to be back at the ballpark. It's been a little while. I don't know if you guys are covering any of the games this weekend, but PSN will continue to provide the best coverage possible. And looking forward to seeing the excitement surrounding these 2 new additions in CBP. And this is the home stretch, guys. Final month plus of the season. So the nitty-gritty is really starting to settle in.
And Tim, you got anything? Final thoughts, plugs?
I gotta start putting out some more Phillies content since my first one was so successful. And then I'm just about to embark on my My third year en road to the show. I'll be defending my MVP award, and
There
I'm
you
looking
go.
forward to a lucrative season.
What's your player's name?
It's the same name that I have, dude. I'm narcissistic
Yeah.
to a fault.
Wait, Alec, you would, if you did Road to the Show, you wouldn't use your actual
No,
name?
listen, my guy Swede Gerrymander back in MLB The Show 2011, knuckleball with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball.
Wow.
You weren't
That's all I
ready
got.
for Swede Gerrymander.
I was not. No, dude, I lost all concentration on the name alone.
All right. I think we're all a little ready to wrap this one up. So for myself, for Kyle, for Corey, for Tim, this has been Philly Sports Network's stream of the trade deadline for Major League Baseball. Thank you all for joining. And again, make sure to check out Alley Talk tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, everybody, have a great day.